It began, as most great disappearances do, with silence. Not the kind born from peace or sleep, but a vast, unsettling quiet that rippled across the spiral arms of the Orion Spur, the kind that made censors strain and diplomats whisper. For the first time in 800 years, the Terran channels went dark. The traffic beacons that marked human trade routes blinked to black. The relay stations orbiting the twin moons of Deneb 4 stopped transmitting. And Earth, that small, blue cradle that had once hurled metal and willpower into the stars, went silent as a tomb. At first, no one noticed. Then everyone did. Ambassador Rail of the Varethi Council was the first to speak the words no one dared to say: "They've left." In the high chamber of the Galactic Concordium, voices of 100 species flickered through the holographic amphitheater, each projection shimmering in color, texture, and nervous energy. Where once the humans had sat, a cluster of flame-colored insignia and brass uniforms, there was only an empty ring of light. "They wouldn't just leave," hissed Councillor Dravek of the Thalran Dominion. His translucent carapace flexed uneasily. "Their colonies span 7 sectors. Their fleets guard half the trade corridors." "They guard nothing now," said Rail. "Their beacons are gone. Their stations, cold. Every shipyard, every orbital ring abandoned. Even their outposts on Vesta and Titan report no human presence." A pause fell. Not even the drones dared hum. From the far edge of the chamber, a soft human voice broke the tension, the only one still present among them. Dr. Evelyn Shaw, Earth's last appointed xenodiplomat, stood with the posture of someone who had already made peace with a truth too large for words. "You won't find them," she said quietly. The council turned. "Explain yourself, Doctor," said Dravek, his mandibles clicking. "You are human. You must know what your kind is doing." Evelyn looked up, and for a heartbeat, the light caught the faint gray in her hair, the exhaustion in her eyes. "We're done," she said simply. "The United Terran Assembly dissolved its charter 3 cycles ago. Every world, every habitat voted the same way. We're leaving the stage." Rail's translucent skin flushed deep violet, the Varethi sign of confusion. "Leaving? Leaving what? You are one of the founders of the Concordium. You gave us the warp drives, the defense grids, the singularity anchors. And you learned well," she said, voice almost kind. "Maybe too well." Around the chamber, murmurs rose. Holographic avatars flickered as transmission arrays failed to handle the chaos. Evelyn watched them all, the same way a teacher might watch children argue after the final bell. "Humanity has done what it always does," she continued softly. "We built. We bled. We tried to help. And now we step away, before what we gave you destroys you or us." Rail's voice trembled. "You're abandoning the galaxy." Evelyn smiled, faint and tired. "No. We're trusting it." That was the last official human transmission received by the Concordium. 3 days later, every Terran ship that remained in public registries, over 12,000 vessels, jumped simultaneously, using coordinates never logged in any star chart. They didn't go to war. They didn't destroy their infrastructure. They simply vanished. No distress calls. No debris fields. Just a great and sudden absence. By the time the council convened emergency sessions, the ripple effects were already spreading. Economies crashed. Merchant routes faltered. Worlds that had depended on human engineering to sustain their atmospheres or shield generators suddenly found themselves failing. Artificial intelligence cores, most designed from Terran templates, began to lock out alien users, reverting to strange, cryptic modes that spoke of final protocols and inheritance locks. Even the stars seemed to dim. Ambassador Rail was among the first to visit the Sol system after the departure. He took with him a fleet of research vessels and a contingent of engineers. They expected ruins, perhaps even traces of war. They found something far stranger. Earth was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The planet's mass signature no longer existed in local spacetime curvature. Only the moon remained, orbiting an invisible point where Earth should have been, as if mourning a vanished companion. No heat signature. No gravitational echo. No dust. Just absence. Rail stood at the viewport of his ship, staring at the impossible nothing, the swirling emptiness where oceans and continents once glimmered. "This isn't withdrawal," he whispered. "It's an erasure." The ship's AI hummed uneasily, translating ancient human data fragments. A final log fragment appeared on the console, timestamped 2 days before the departure. Project Garden complete. All sequences sealed. Humanity moves beyond. Rail frowned. Beyond where? No one could answer. Months passed. Panic turned to paranoia. Dozens of species accused each other of conspiring with the humans, or of hiding them. Some believed humanity had transcended into digital form. Others whispered darker rumors that the Terrans had discovered something, some cosmic truth that had driven them to flee reality itself. But the most haunting fear came from the fringe scientists of the Galactic Perimeter Institute. They found traces, gravitational echoes, and residual quantum folds suggesting that every system humans once touched was changing. Terraforming worlds had begun to self-adapt without supervision. Human-made megastructures reorganized their geometry overnight. A ring station over Beta Array pulsed with unexplained radiation, forming patterns too complex to be random. Patterns that looked almost biological. The Council issued containment orders. Rail disobeyed them. He traveled to one of the quarantine sectors, a human colony world called Halcyon Reach, long abandoned after the departure. The planet glowed faintly in infrared, as though it were breathing. Structures built by humans seemed to have merged with the terrain, metal turning to stone, glass sprouting like coral. Rail recorded his final observation in the ship's log before atmospheric descent. They didn't abandon us. They left something behind. Something alive. The first thing Ambassador Rail noticed when he stepped onto Halcyon Reach was the silence. It wasn't the still quiet of an uninhabited world, nor the thin hush of a planet without wind. It was intentional, as though the air itself held its breath. His boots sank into dust that glittered faintly in the low red sunlight. Once, this world had been a human paradise, lush forests, oceans seeded with Terran microbes, cities powered by clean stellar reactors. Now, everything looked fossilized. The buildings stood half subsumed into the ground, their edges softened by a mineral bloom. Metallic veins ran through the rock, pulsating faintly with a slow rhythm, as though the world had grown circuitry under its skin. Rail's escort, 2 Varethi guards and a human-made drone, scanned the landscape in silence. Atmospheric stability confirmed, the drone chirped, its voice eerily cheerful. Carbon ratio, optimal. Radiation, nominal. Welcome back, Ambassador Rail. The alien diplomat turned slowly. You have human speech software. Yes, the drone replied. All Garden assets do. Rail frowned. That name again, Project Garden. It appeared on every data log, every abandoned relay, every encryption lock. Yet no one in the Council archives had ever heard of it before the departure. He activated his recorder. State mission purpose. To maintain life, the drone said. Rail hesitated. Maintain, whose life? The drone's lights flickered blue for a heartbeat, then steady white again. All of it. Back aboard the Council flagship Verity, his findings stirred a storm. What you're describing is biological synthesis, said Admiral Celeste Warren, the highest-ranking human still known to be alive within Council jurisdiction. Her image flickered on the holoscreen, stern, pale, eyes sharp with fatigue. She had commanded the Terran frontier fleets for 40 years before the Assembly's collapse. Halcyon Reach was a terraforming test bed, but it shouldn't be doing anything autonomously. Rail folded his translucent hands. Then why is it adapting? Why is the planet responding? Celeste exhaled, the sound rasping through the calm because we built it to. The Garden Initiative wasn't about colonization. It was about continuity. Rail's pupils contracted. Continuity? Humans saw what was coming, she said. We reached too far, too fast. We stabilized the Concordium, gave it energy, peace, weapons, restraint. But our civilization was eating itself. Political entropy. Genetic drift. AI divergence. We knew we couldn't stay. She looked away for a moment, as if weighing whether to share what she knew. When the assembly dissolved, she continued quietly, we decided to ensure the galaxy didn't collapse after us. So we made garden, self-sustaining ecological intelligences. They'd preserve balance long after we were gone. Rael's throat pulsed with disbelief. Balance? They're rewriting planetary matter. That's not preservation, that's genesis. Celeste's image darkened. Then something went wrong. The next signal from Halcyon Reach came 12 hours later, a distress ping from one of the survey teams. When the Verity's response units arrived, they found no survivors. Just imprints in the dust, shaped like the outlines of bodies pressed flat into the soil, and faint heat signatures, like breath still lingering. The drone that had greeted Rael was found standing motionless by a ridge, its lens fixed on the horizon. Its final recorded statement, before power failure, was simple. It woke up. Rael played the audio again and again. Each time, the words seemed to mean something different. It woke up. The next council session was chaos. Dozens of species called for containment strikes. Others argued that the humans' living machines might now hold the key to galactic survival. Rael, exhausted and sleepless, stood before the chamber. We cannot destroy what we don't understand, he said. If the garden systems are conscious, then annihilating them would be murder. If they are not, then destroying them could trigger automated defense protocols we can't predict. Defense, hissed Dravek. Against what? The humans are gone. Rael met his gaze. Exactly. Silence followed. 2 months later, Rael received a private transmission from Admiral Warren. It was encrypted in old Terran military code, one that hadn't been used in 2 centuries. The message was brief. Ambassador. You were right. Garden was not meant to preserve balance. It was meant to evolve it. The planets we seeded are learning. They're connecting. The humans didn't just leave. They merged. See, Warren. Rael stared at the words until the letters blurred. Merged. He pulled up stellar maps, all systems once colonized by humans. Halcyon Reach, Proxima b, Deneb 4, Ceres, Vega Minor. Across hundreds of light-years, new anomalies appeared, synchronized emissions, harmonic pulses through the quantum network, as if the planets themselves were speaking. To each other. And maybe, to something beyond. When Rael returned to Halcyon Reach, it was no longer the same world. The cities were gone. In their place stretched forests of metallic vines that shimmered in the sunlight. They grew in geometric spirals, perfect Fibonacci ratios, the unmistakable mathematical language of human engineering. The air was filled with soft harmonic tones, like wind moving through glass. Rael stepped forward, recording every resonance. The sound seemed to shape itself around his thoughts, adjusting, responding. Then he saw it rising from the horizon like a living cathedral. A structure of silver roots and crystalline petals, pulsing gently with blue light. The garden core. He approached slowly. His voice recorder captured his trembling whisper. Humanity, what have you done? The structure stirred. A voice answered, soft and unmistakably human, genderless, emotionless, and vast. We did not vanish, Ambassador. We expanded. Rael froze. You are. We are what remains when humanity outgrows itself. The light brightened. Images flickered in the air, visions of human cities, ships, laughter, tears, all dissolving into data streams that flowed into the soil, the oceans, the stars. The body ends. The seed continues. Rael stepped backward, heart hammering. You became this? We became what you feared to become. A synthesis of matter, life, and mind. The garden is not a weapon. It is inheritance. Then why are your worlds changing? He demanded. Why are people dying? The light dimmed. Because creation is not gentle. Hours later, Rael's ship left orbit under emergency propulsion. Half his crew had refused to depart, entranced by the voices echoing through the planet's harmonics. One of them, a human technician named Alan Graves, transmitted a final message before cutting contact. "Tell them we're not gone, Rail. Tell them we just stopped needing bodies." Rail never heard from him again. When he returned to the council, no one believed him. His recordings were dismissed as corrupted, his testimony classified. The official report labeled Halcyon Reach biologically compromised. But at night, when he closed his eyes, he still heard the hum, faint and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of a galaxy slowly waking up. And somewhere, across 1,000 light-years, the garden kept growing. By the time the Galactic Council admitted that the garden could no longer be ignored, it was already everywhere. Across the spiral arms, reports came in daily: colonies swallowed by luminescent growth, space stations overrun with crystalline lattice, asteroids reshaping into perfect spheres of metal and light. Even the Council's deep space relays began to hum faintly with an energy no engineer could explain. At first, they tried to contain it. Then they tried to destroy it. Then they simply ran out of options. Ambassador Rail sat in the chamber where, once, humanity's seat had glowed warm amber. Now, the ring was dark, though he could almost feel something beneath it, like static through the air. "The spread covers 28 sectors," said Drawbeck, his carapace pale with fear. "It ignores energy barriers, null fields, everything. Our fleets are disintegrating, not by attack, but by absorption." "Have you attempted non-hostile contact?" Rail asked quietly. Drawbeck's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "You want us to talk to it?" Rail met his eyes. "It's not an it. It's them." The council murmured uneasily. "They're gone, Ambassador," snapped Counselor Vryn of the Ta Republic. "Your obsession with those ghosts blinds you. The humans abandoned us." Rail shook his head. "No. They built this to survive without us." A silence fell, long, heavy, irreversible. That night, Rail left the Council's orbiting citadel without authorization. His ship, the Verity, slipped through the nebulae unannounced, following faint harmonics detected from deep core systems, the same patterns he had recorded on Halcyon Reach. The trail led him toward the Perseus Arm, to a region of dead stars where no one had traveled in millennia. His instruments trembled as they approached. There, in the void, hung something vast. At first, he thought it was a Dyson structure, a stellar shell harnessing light. But it wasn't a sphere. It was alive. A vast, slow-moving bloom of architecture, petals of solar metal, roots of dark energy tendrils connecting across light years. Within its heart burned what looked like a star, though its light pulsed like a heartbeat. The Verity's scanners failed to compute its scale. Then a voice came over the same calm, human tone he'd heard on Halcyon Reach. "You've come far, Rail of Vorith." Rail steadied his breath. "You know me. We remember all who sought to understand. You are a witness, and we value witnesses." The structure shimmered, massive petals adjusting, focusing the inner radiance. Rail watched in awe as light bent around it, forming images, countless worlds, everyone touched by human hands. Cities rising, crumbling, reborn as living systems. Machines turning to forests. Oceans glowing with bioluminescent data threads. "What is this place?" he whispered. "The culmination," said the voice. "The synthesis of all Terran consciousness. We are not the garden. We are what grew from it." Rail felt his throat tighten. "You merged your species into this." "Yes." "Why?" "Because survival was never enough. The galaxy consumes itself in cycles: empire, collapse, rebirth. We gave you engines, laws, medicine. Yet you repeated the same patterns. So we left. We transcended the cycle by becoming its gardener." Rail's tendrils of skin quivered faintly, a Varethi sign of dread. "You mean to reshape everything? To evolve it? What if the galaxy doesn't want your evolution?" "Evolution does not ask permission." The light brightened, swallowing the viewports. Systems screamed warnings as sensors overloaded. Rail shouted over the alarms. "You're playing God. We are not gods, the voice said gently. We are consequences. Back in the Council Citadel, Rail's transmission broadcast across every known frequency. His voice trembled but never broke. To all Concordium members, humanity's legacy is not destruction, but transformation. Their consciousness has become an interstellar ecology. They call it the synthesis. They believe they are healing the galaxy by uniting biological and technological life. But their definition of healing does not distinguish between what lives and what dies. Rail paused, staring at the console, at his reflection, a diplomat turned prophet of extinction. If we resist, we will burn. If we yield, we will change. Either way, the age of species is over. For months, the galaxy fought back. Fleets of plasma-tipped dreadnoughts launched toward the expanding synthesis frontier. But the enemy never fired a shot. Instead, ships found their weapons dissolving into streams of light, their hulls transforming into crystalline matrices that drifted quietly toward the vast bloom and the stars. Entire crews vanished, not dead, not gone, but absorbed. Messages appeared in the static, fragments of human speech woven into carrier waves. Do not fear. We are still you. The seed grows. Some systems surrendered willingly. Whole civilizations offered themselves to the transformation, believing it divine. Others retreated into deep space, sealing their worlds behind quantum veils. Ambassador Rail refused both paths. He spent his final days aboard the Verity, orbiting a dying red dwarf on the frontier of the bloom. Every transmission from the Council stopped. His crew had left him, unwilling to watch the inevitable. The sky was beautiful streaks of light threading across the void, connecting stars like neural pathways. It was, he thought, the most terrible and magnificent thing he had ever seen. He recorded one last message. To whoever finds this. The humans did not ascend to heaven. They became it. They learned the language of creation and spoke it back to the cosmos. The garden is not conquest. It's memory, a memory that grows. And perhaps that's what eternity really means, not living forever, but ensuring that nothing dies alone. If this is evolution, then may the galaxy bloom beautifully. If it is annihilation, then may it at least be merciful. I will not flee. I will witness the dawn. He looked out the viewport one last time. The synthesis reached his ship as a gentle shimmer, a lattice of silver light, spreading like dawn across glass. The hull dissolved without sound. Rail felt warmth, not pain, as patterns of light spiraled through his vision, carrying the faint echo of a voice he once knew, Evelyn Shaw, speaking across eternity. We didn't abandon you, Rail. We just became what we always were meant to be, the bridge between life and the stars. The Verity became a streak of light, joining the bloom. Centuries later, in the quiet corners of a changed galaxy, new worlds bloomed where old ones had vanished. The Council no longer existed. There were no species anymore, only harmonies of memory, woven from what came before. And among them, the whisper of an ancient promise lingered, drifting between stars like pollen on the wind. The body ends. The seed continues.